the value of the clinic will be is hearing consistent messaging and evolution from each topic, and then let's follow up with it to get real world application of this is how we drill it, this is how we practice it, this is how we install it, this is the flow of it, these are the fail points that we've seen. Maybe we can bring them to life without them just being, theory.
Coaches are swimming in content right now. It's everywhere. Film, clinics, cut-ups, clips, systems, new ideas, every scroll on your phone. But the real problem isn't access, it's what happens after you watch it. If you're listening to or viewing something without a pathway to application, it gets overwhelming fast. And at some point, if you're actually calling plays or coaching, the film is your resume. So what you do has to show up on tape. That's the gap we're trying to close, both with what we're building on the Coaching Coordinator Network and with a new clinic format we're rolling out called Smart Clinics. Today's guest is Caleb Corrill, offensive coordinator at Georgetown College. He's jumped into the network in a big way with his Student of the Game series, and what makes it different is it doesn't stop at here are the X's and O's. It digs into how coaches actually learn, organize, and apply what they're studying. In this conversation, we'll hit on three things: why Caleb is obsessed with pathway to application and how he uses that lens to study football, his Switchblade Offense, and why less is more can still be multiple, and what's coming in our first Smart Clinic, the RPO Symposium, with Caleb as our clinic director. Let's get into today's conversation. Well, I'm always excited to talk ball with our guest today. Caleb Corrill is now the offensive coordinator at Georgetown College in Kentucky. He's done an incredible amount of work here for us already in just a short year on the Coaching Coordinator podcast with his series Student of the Game, which had 2 seasons last year. We did basically a winter season and then a spring season, and we have another one coming up with him. But I think what I've enjoyed most about Caleb is that he's a student of the game and really to understand how he thinks about it. And that's really what shined through in the work that he's done, is that he really has brought out on that podcast how people think. So Caleb, again, thanks for joining us. And of course, thank you for all the work you've done on the Coaching Coordinator Network.
Oh, yeah, I'm honored to be a part of it and excited about what we've done, but really looking forward to where we're taking it. And Coaching Coordinator's given me a lot in my career before we ever connected. So to be able to be a part of it and give back, that's kind of what makes this whole thing kind of still feels like a dream, but it's pretty cool.
It's been an interesting 5-6 years here from the pandemic on, and we had certainly the pause. And I think what's been really cool to hear is how a lot of guys took that time off to step back, reflect, understand where they're at, and really evolve themselves. I've heard so many stories about that shared on, the numerous series we have on the podcast, whether it's been the guests that I've talked to or yourself or other hosts that we have here on the network. But also what we've seen is this, just coaches are swimming in content right now. It's everywhere. Like, it used to be difficult to get the knowledge. There wasn't a lot. I mean, you're growing up in a different era where it's digitally streaming, it's available everywhere. And again, the pandemic kind of boosted all of that. But go back to when I'm learning off of VHS tapes and books and articles and magazines, and there's not online at the time any like video stuff like we see today. And now it's everywhere. So it still goes back to, I think the biggest thing and what's been exciting about your series is you've really dug into how people think about the game. Not just here's how you learn the X's and O's. The learning is always going to be the part of it, but I think I really see it now as that's like level 1 of what you have to do with all the things you learn as a coach. And it's been exciting to just hear both how you think about it and then how you draw out how all these different guys learn and think about the game as well.
Yeah, I think like you said, I'm just old enough to where my entrance to the game was, transition from VHS to DVDs, but it was really difficult to hear processes about where people were at. Once we started to get the content flow of seeing people's film out there, obviously that was my first introduction into it. And then the further I progressed, always searching for, conceptual answers. But what's really just been driving my intrigue is how do people operate? How do they go through an off season and improve themselves? How do they, think about breaking down their film and what aspects of that are they using to get better. And we can get any all 22 if you ask the right people anymore. You can get all 22 anywhere. But my intrigue is, what do you do with it? Like, I love watching all 22, but I think I get a little bit overwhelmed at times when I'm watching or listening to something without a pathway to application. And so student of the game to me is just getting bright guys that I know, I've seen success or I've talked to them in other ventures and know that they have a unique or successful way about going about their business, and really digging into how they see the game, how they go about it, personal improvement. And, these are the guys that are having success year in and year out, and they're constantly evolving. So what does it mean to evolve? I used to think it was adding a play. The more that I talk to people and the more that I've kind of invested in studying, myself and what we do, it's evolution within what you understand and what you believe. And that's where, to me, student of the game is it's literally the idea of how do you go about learning? And what are the processes that you utilize? Staying organized, having a goal in mind, being disciplined in that process, and then applying it. Because there's amazing content out there, but without application, if you are actually calling plays or coaching somewhere, at some point, the film is a resume and you're going to have to get it to show on film, or it's kind of all for none. So that's just been an intrigue of mine. And that's where I really like just digging into thought processes, how people go about that.
Yeah, I think it really is, I think you could call it the secret sauce. You look at things. And last night, I'm on Air Raid War Room with Hal. We're running that with him on the Coaching Coordinator Network. And he's talking with a coach and, made the point that what he sees as, certainly they've proven air raid offense over multiple places year after year after year that it can work. And he said all these guys, kind of get bored with learning to get better at, here's what we need to keep understanding, get better at, know where we're going next with. He said, we used to be like that. We were trying all kinds of things, and guys will come with, hey, this idea or that idea. And I said, yeah, we tried it. Like, nobody knew about it back then because we were at the small school level or whatever it might be. But his point being, like, I guess being able to, in some ways, get bored with what you have in terms of your content, your playbook or whatever, that it's not about adding this wrinkle and that wrinkle all the time. It's really, how do we get better at the execution of this? How do we help our players understand it better? How do we understand it better? And I've made all those mistakes and reached points where I've had to step back and be like, man, where did this offense go? It got away from me. It's just a grab bag of plays. And it's truly understanding, and developing that into a system. And I think your best systems thinkers out there, and it really doesn't matter the offense, because, we have another one on Coaching Coordinator Network, slot team mafia, right? Like, you look at this thing, and when I hear him coach, though, I told Paul Kilby this the other day. I said, you know what? I hear from you. I could strip this out. He said, people aren't going to come here. They're going to come here because you do the slot T and that's what they're interested in. But honestly, a spread guy could come in here, strip out the context of slot T and listen to you coach and how you think about the game, and take that and be better at what they're doing. It's almost like, if you can understand the thought processes, it's like, bring your own offense. It will work if you can understand, how does this all fit together? And I think Phil Longo said it once on the podcast. He's like, my playbook at home is as tall as I am, but what I put in front of my team is 26 plays. And we're very disciplined about what we put in front of our team. And it's not, coordinating is not about being the guru, being the whiteboard warrior who can have an answer for everything. It's about making sure that you got alignment within your program between your players, your coaches, and your vision for what's going on. And that's probably the most difficult thing to do. Not come up with another quarters beater or whatever it might be.
No, I'm with you. I can, just like you do, I reflect on when I was grab bagging and when, I wrote an article at one point after my first year coordinator. One of the things is, like, if you don't know how to correct things, I was thinking of things in plays at that point, but if you don't know how to correct things within your system, it's really just a play at that point. Is no longer a concept. It no longer ties together with other things. And so I think, like you said, the first thing is, I love, because I've heard Coach Mummy say that before, is getting bored with the fundamentals. And that's been a piece that, I've really leaned into, where, like you said, you can put whatever play design you want into the context. If you understand how to evaluate, you understand the pros, the things that stress a particular concept that you like, and then you have the pathway and the packaging to build off of that concept, Now you're starting to get things that are, I call them future proof, where it's now we can take this and we can make this long lasting. And again, like the air raid's as good of an example as anything, where it's decades long of examples, decades long, and it's outreaching to all levels of football. And what I love about it, whether you like a shallow concept or a four verts concept or not, it's the way that they think. That's what I take away from the air raid guys. It's just like, I mean, Saw T Mafia, what a name, by the way, branding wise. That's a heck of a name. But my dad was a wing T guy, and I used to rebel against it. It's a wing T. But all I could think about now is wing T was a systemized operation. If this, then that. We go to this. It had simple adjustments. I watched those guys back in Batavia, Ohio, when I was 20, 21 years old coaching, adjust at halftime, and I thought it was wizardry. And what they had done is they'd become experts in their craft. They understood what things stressed it out. So when those defensive stressors were applied to them, they had the adjustments. They knew where to go with it. And that was from marinating in their concept, in their belief system over and over while always evolving it. That's what we're talking about, is evolving within your concept system. And I like what you said, where I think what you're doing is obviously guys are going to go, if somebody like option routes, they're calling herring or they're going to shoot me a DM. But to me, it's far reaching. It's much more broader than that of what, where I think we've gotten things to based on a lot of the resources you mentioned is it's an operating system, right? It's a way to think about it. It's placing it in there, evolving within the context of these core structures, and then giving your players confidence to be able to actually bring to life those answers. And that's where we've been stressing and ruminating with our players is you can never learn enough. Take the most basic concept in your system that everybody's bored with. Everyone knows we're going to run it. We're going to call it 10, 15 times a game. And you should always, every offseason, learn something more about it, whether that's a pro or a con against it, and build. That's kind of the point that I've kind of reached.
Yeah, I think you hit on something important there too, is the player side of this. When those adjustments, when those ways, those methods of understanding, when it's breaking and your players know like, okay, this is what I need to do within my assignment to make it work. Now you really have something that's powerful, right? I would always tell guys like, I don't want robots running the lines that are drawn here. Like the line is like the general path. There's going to be all kinds of dynamic things that happen on here, and you need to know how to navigate that. And that takes a lot of time on task. That takes that repetition. That's having the capacity for boredom, as Hal calls it, but it's truthfully not, because there's nothing boring about understanding what I'm doing better. So I can always win on the play, even when coach maybe calls a bad play into a defense that's going to stop it, to still have that little tweak that you can do as a player to win your space, leverage, whatever it might be, to give the play a shot. That's when I think you have something magic there. And if you really want to get good at something, it's not sitting in the clinic and learning it. It's finding a way to get out to that coach's practice and watch it. And I mean, I was blessed to be able to watch Mike Leach air raid practice when he was at Mississippi State. It was brilliant. It was well orchestrated, simple things, the way that they got their reps, the way that, they were able to get a ton done throughout their practice. At the same time, not necessarily running a ton of plays. And Mike's standing there with his call sheet for practices like you see on game day, just like that. So that's where the magic is, that it is about teaching. It's about making your players dynamic and understanding it. Maybe they'll never understand it to level you will as a coach, but you want to get them to as close to that as possible.
Yeah, that's everything. And, I always go off of the old adage. I mean, the film is your resume, and at the end of the day, like the film's got the backup, the coaching points. Otherwise, it's just theory in your head on the whiteboard in your notebook. And that's where I think the longer you do it, the more, I love your term, time on task, the more time on task you spend there, that's where the real intrigue comes, is being able to continuously solve and evolve things that you believe in, convictions that you have about, the game of football on whatever side you're on, and building that knowledge base, building the fundamentals that you're able to teach and practice with. And I think, the things that I will ever clinic on are things that we have deep cut-ups on, because to me, that's the truest sense of a procedural idea or concept, where here's 45 reps of this concept versus almost everything you could imagine it with. And here's the evolution of our thought process, from 2021 to 2025, and why things are slightly different as the jersey colors change, but it's the same core procedure, same, base coaching points that we've tried to deliver to the kids to solve problems. That's all we're trying to do is find ways to solve problems and minimize the jargon. That's something I think I've been really working on. Is I love a good clinic jargon as much as anybody, but getting it directly to the players in the most simple form. Because what I've realized too is usually the most simplistic idea is the right one on a particular down and distance. When it's man, you want to get to the things that you think solve man. And when it's too high zone, you want to get to the things that solve a too high zone. And if you can take an idea and deliver it in the most simple form, make it fundamental in their process, now we have something that will show up on tape and will show up on tape throughout the course of a season and over multiple seasons. And now to me, all of a sudden, you're starting to get into the conceptual model and you're creating that systemic idea that's less about plays and individual drawings that we come up with.
Yeah, I think moving this now to specifically some of the things that you do, and was able to come out in December and we sat down and we got some of your stuff on video, and we'll be releasing that here on Coaching Coordinator Network soon, from what you call the Switchblade Offense. So before we dig into it, tell us what that means to you and why you've branded it with your team as the Switchblade Offense.
Yeah, I think for all the reasons, obviously, you see Joe Matheson, his success, and you got the branding that speaks to the style that they play with the Top Gun, and any great offense that has been systemized like that, always has a moniker. And I was pretty delayed in creating something like that. But really what we thought about was the branding to it. We wanted our kids to recognize their identity. Stepping into a new institution, a new job where kids had no experience with it, we wanted to build the brand around it of this is what we do, and then more importantly, why we do it. To us, what the Switchblade, really brings to life, and I have to give credit to Dane Keller, who you got to hear on the LFG clinic, the receivers coach here. He sat with me basically for a year, ran the system for a year, and kept saying the word Switchblade to me. And after we had the conclusion of the season, he said, just hear me out. The Switchblade this is a small, compact tool with a lot of different uses. And seeing the way that we operate, and what we try to do is be simplistic in how many quote unquote plays we carry and maximizing the ways, to create different stressors for defense, but remaining true to the core idea or the core teaching points. And so really the Switchblade, what we've been telling our players is, to me, it's, those old Survivor shows that you would see where you're in the wilderness. And if you got one of those tools, you can kill prey, you can skin prey, you can, create fire off the willing stick. If you have a can to open, you can open a can. Those are multiple ways to use something that's not going to take up much space in your pack or your pocket. Or, the uncle or grandpa or dad at Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, the guy with the pocket knife was the hero of the day because he was able to solve the problem that was at hand, which is getting the tape off the box, popping the plastic, wrapping around these kids' toys. That was a very useful tool that in that particular situation created immense impact. And that's what, to me, the Switchblade is it's, like you said, it's less about what football plays you want to put inside of it. It's the idea that we believe we have the ability to adjust and create what is needed to win that particular down, to win that particular drive, the particular game, in the particular situation, based on building inside out. From here are the core ideas. This is what these things do and don't do. This is what they're good for and what they're not good for, and then maximizing their usability based on situation. And we can cross it from, personnel to different players and all the things that come with it. So that's kind of where that idea came from. And we're excited about it. And the more that we present it to our guys, the more that it takes on a meaning of its own. But it's just a way of thinking where less is more, and having versatility is always going to be a good thing, especially in the modern day of football. Each week is going to create new problems and issues that you're going to have to solve. And I think a one way of thinking is usually going to get you bit at some point in a season. So trying to be as multiple as possible without overburdening our players with trying to memorize a ton of different plays.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting is, and in your illustration of it, using one of the most basic plays, just a corner concept or smash, and showing how, we can take multiple layers of stress and just with this, concept that everybody knows, do so much with it. Where, like you said, some people maybe only approach it with, okay, we'll add this layer of stress. And it's knowing not just the different stressors, but what can we layer on it that's going to cause essentially the defense to break, right? That's the whole thing. And not having to come up with more and more and more plays but just being able to layer on all these different things, whether it's formational stress or, stress with movement, stress with field space, et cetera. Like the way you thought about it and illustrated it multiple ways with the exact same concept, showing us over and over and over again, like just the smash route, I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the longer when I was 2017 first year coordinator, I thought I was creating football firsthand. And my dad's an old ball coach, and I came to him with something which I can't remember the exact example, but he played at Wilmington College, and that's where the Bengals trained. So they had a bunch of Bill Walsh, stuff in their system in the mid 80s at Wilmington. He goes, dude, we ran this in 1986. You didn't create this. Like, we were running this, and this is the way we did it. And the longer you do it, the more you realize, like, everybody's got the same plays. I love tried, true and tested concepts that have lasted the test of time. And then the way I think about it is just, stimuli. How many ways we teach this basic idea, and then how many stimuli can we apply to a defense to where, yes, everybody should know, okay, Coach Corrill in Georgetown, they're going to run smash. Okay, well, that's great. We are going to apply the version or form of smash that we believe most tests your particular coverage match rules. And all it is to me is understanding, like, yeah, these are the general points, but we're going to create different stimuli that you have to account for, from a week to week basis, to where one week it will look, in a particular way. And then the next week when we doll it up, we'll still be, we'll always build off smash, but which way are we doing it? Is it off of, is it off of a rollout concept? Is it in the true drop back? Is it getting motion to? Is it lateral double moves? Whatever it may be. But I think you think of it in any concept that you love. Like, what I try to explain to people is, to me, it's smash, because that's where my understanding started and emanated out from. But you take inside zone. Inside zone's a great play. And you mentioned your stretch play. Like, it's a great football play. But if you only have one or two stimuli to run that to a defense, they're going to be able to fit those general landmarks. They're going to be able to fit the gaps and slow the play down, whether they're better than you or not. So then the whole idea is, this is the concept. How can we do it that stress the way that they see it? Can we get it presented in a manner that maybe, we always talk about gaining a half step on people. And anything that you think about is keep the concept the same. There's no reason to come up with a new concept, because you do have time on task with smash, but now understand, just multiplicity within one idea. And I think that once you can break the mental barrier and train your kids to understand that, we call it a heat map. If there's somebody here and there's somebody over top of them, we're considering it smash. It doesn't really matter. We got, these are our base ways to do it. And then we can apply all these different formational stressors to maximize it. But all we're doing, and you don't have to carry every single tool into every single game. You're not going to need a can opener if you're not bringing a can to open to eat in the wilderness retreat. You don't need it. Save it. It's not necessary. Okay. But when you do need it, we have that ability. Okay. We can pop that tool out. We can get it done. And it's won us a lot of games. I mean, going back into Mount St. Joe, that thing that shows up all over that cut up that we filmed. It's important down at distances where we really didn't know what to call, but we went with our gut. We went with what we trusted, and we understood that we had ways to make it right, really regardless of what we were seeing. And to me, that the more that cut up stacks up, that's what you're looking for, is something that's multiple, something that's really simplistic in nature, and it's actually proving to win football games. It's having an effect on the ultimate goal, which is getting our teams to be successful.
Yeah, I really think what you're talking about here is making sure that you have depth in your playbook, that your page on Smash isn't one page and now we turn it and we're on to a next one, that there's chapters now, the way you think about it, just a book metaphor, chapters on Smash, or whatever the concept might be, because it's exactly like you talked about. They might know this is what they do. They love running this particular play. I can remember back to, when coaching high school ball, we put in zone offense, and stretch was our starting point play, and we had inside zone, and we ran naked off of it. And those were the three plays. Some situational stuff, but that's what we're calling like 90% of the time. And I remember, young, I think it was a guard, comes over, coach, they're every play they're saying, watch the stretch, watch the zone. And I'm like, it's a good thing they didn't say naked, or they had all of them, Pat. Like, that's not the point. The point is, like, that's okay, because I'm not giving you the same presentation all the time. I am going to work to make sure you fit it the wrong way. And we're going to know it better, from that standpoint, rather than just giving you one presentation. Because, yeah, if I only ran it all out of the same formation, yeah, you probably would fit everything up and we'd be screwed. But like we weren't going to give it to you. So it wasn't even like, I can even remember we had a quarterback who, like, if he was near me, he'd come over to get the play, and one team picked up on it. And so they would send a guy over towards us too to see if he could hear it. And I'm like, whatever. I gave them the play, and I finally had enough of that guy. I said, hey, we're running stretch over here. Go tell your buddies. And we did. Like, I told them to play. It didn't matter to me. Like, this is not, yeah, you want to stay a step ahead, but it's not about tricking and outsmarting. It's about out executing. Of course, you have to mix things up. It's not like I want everybody to know my signals and what we're doing. It was, to prove a point to our players, like, guys, I'm not doing anything magic. It's you guys executing, and then us being smart about how we're setting you up for success with the presentation of the play. And like you're talking about, the layers of stress.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite go-to. I mean, it's good once a year. We got it last year. They know our plays, and it happened to be a game we were rolling in. I said, good. I said, they hadn't stopped it yet. You know what I mean? Make them stop it, right? And then you playfully, like you said, you probably go over there, okay, well, they're crashing the backside in. Well, guess what, guys? We're going to nake it next time and watch what happens, right? And it's whatever your layer is off of it, and that's good once a year. But yeah, I mean, it's always... I used to be I love the chapter in the singular page, and Coach Keller had mentioned one that's the same analogy, where an individual player or one page in this playbook that is the concept, and you're going to the next is a lamppost. It's straight up and down, right? There's not much that comes off of it. We want a concept, your stretch concept, our smash concept. Take anybody that's doing really good stuff, and Joe's pin pull, quarterback pin pull concept. It's a tree with branches and branches off branches and seeds dropping off of that are growing into new trees. And now we got a forest, right? Where it's not a singular thought process. Like you said, everybody's got a designer too. But I'll tell you what, I mean, designers have let me down more than tried, true, and tested Smash. I mean, Smash is one more situations than any designer I came up with during the week that you get off Twitter. So, that's certainly the key. And that's what systems are. If you really, it's like you said, you take it all the way back. It's the thought process, whether it's exactly. That's why I like watching, the NFL. I like watching the NFL. We don't do 80% of what they do in the NFL, but I like watching how these high level play callers are layering concepts. They're systemizing whatever it is that they believe is their base, and that's what they do. That's just what they do. And they have constraint plays that come off of it. And they have, you watch these guys and they evolve it slightly, subtly every year. It's got a new wrinkle, but guess what? It's still, they're running duo, they're running their mid zone, they're running their boot, they're running the same things that have been in football for a long time. I mean, but they just, and then personnel's on top of it. They're able to apply it to different personnel where it's not, the X is doing this in this smash concept. The smash concept for us is conceptual. It's just like you probably taught your guys in the stretch play. There are multiple different ways to get these combinations where they need to get to. Sometimes we may pin it and fold it. Sometimes we're full zoning it. Sometimes, we're going to make the point a little bit more vertical, whatever it may be, right? You're finding ways that make it advantageous and allowing as many people within your program to be successful within that idea. So now you take the idea, we've already layered it conceptually. Now we're plastering with personnel iterations, and you can draw it as a defense, but I mean, so much I hear about personnel placement, and like we're trying to bust that by teaching our guys from a conceptual standpoint how to operate this from any launch point in the particular concept we're talking about.
Yeah. Quick pause here because this episode ties directly into what we're doing next. We're launching smart clinics because we don't need 16 speakers on one topic. We'd rather get a smaller group and go deeper. How it fits together, how it's taught, and what questions never get answered in a standard X and O talk. Our first one is the Smart Clinics RPO Symposium, and the format is simple. It's on demand at first, so if you grab your ticket about a week early, you'll get the pre-recorded sessions before the live events. We'll have live roundtables and Q&As. So bring your problems, your fronts, your fits, your coverages, and let these guys talk through what they actually do that works and where it breaks down. Within Smart Clinics, we have depth by design. Each speaker is bringing 3 RPO ideas, and you'll see the full pathway from install, implementation, into their system as a whole. You'll hear from coaches doing it right now across levels, including D3 national champion Joe Matheson, Zach Riepma, Tim Souza, and our headliner, Joe Moorhead. Dates are March 17th through 19th. The ticket link is in the show notes. And moving this conversation ahead, the other thing you and I have talked about kind of since the beginning of this, and I think for you, it grows out of student of the game. For me, it's just understanding how we might provide better educational opportunities for coaches. And so, we're about to launch, we've kind of pushed it back a little bit past Lauren's first and goal, but we're about to launch what we call Smart Clinics. And the idea behind a Smart Clinic Lauren's first and goal is our generalist clinic, right? We're going to get a lot of guys together for a cause. They're presenting on a lot of ideas. Now, what's been beautiful about that is over 700 videos, you see the patterns, and now I can go find 6 things on one concept if I have that library and I do have something valuable. But my thought was, we don't need 16 speakers on this. Let's get 5 and let's have those guys go deeper on their thoughts, with a few sessions. Not all separate things that they do, but really getting into how this fits together for them. And the other thing we realized is that for the most part, with a virtual clinic, that guys are consuming those on demand. So we said, hey, let's take that. Let's just make it available on demand as soon as it's done. But let's have some sessions where we can dig into things and get into exactly what we're talking about here, being able to sit down with somebody and understand their thought process, understand how they think about it, ask them questions that don't get presented in the X&O presentations, right? Being able to get depth on this. So that's the point behind this. And, I've tabbed you as the clinic director for what we're calling the RPO Symposium. So an exciting lineup that you've put together. I want you to talk a little bit about what we have coming our way with the RPO Symposium.
Yeah, I'm really fired up. I think it's a great idea by you. And like you said, the whole goal is I take it back. It's why I always thank you. And why I'm so just consistently giddy to be working with you is like where I've learned is through coach and coordinator and through the resources provided. So the idea, that like you said, the RPO Symposium, we're going to grab some names. We got some big names. We got the national champ, Joe Matheson, going to come in here. And we got Zach Riepma at Alma, who I saw firsthand. He beat us pretty good in a playoff game at Mount St. Joe. Tim Souza, who's out on the West Coast operating at the NAIA level. We got a couple guys off of the Switchblade tree that were operating at the high school level. We're operating on the Mount St. Joe and at Georgetown. We're going to have a big time, speaker in Joe Moorhead able to kind of bring it all together. And like our idea behind this is, each of these speakers are going to present 3 ideas within the RPO realm. And as you mentioned, it's time on task. It's within the same ideology, right? And what I've tried to kind of educate them on is like with our Switchblade guys is let's show them from the high school level to the Division III to the NAIA. Let's show them the exact pathway that we take to installing, implementing, and then developing a full-fledged system. So you're going to see from the 100 level to the 400 level of where this thing goes for us, what it does for us in our system, multiple different ways to get it done. And I think what you're going to get from each of these speakers is obviously each guy has their own personal application of their idea with RPOs, which I think is great. So you'll hear multiple iterations. It won't all be the same, process within RPOs, but you're going to see multiple points of contact within how they view the RPOs. Probably going to see constraint plays that are protecting it, solving different problems, within all the way from quarterback run to, 2 high structures, 1 high structures, man answers that are needed to be provided, plays that come off of these RPOs, and ultimately getting a deeper level of understanding from each speaker where they fit in RPOs. So you come in here with either a general intrigue or even a specific interest in RPOs. You're going to hear some guys that are actually doing it live and having success with it in real time at multiple different levels. They've done it for years and years, so they're not flash in the pan. And then you're going to see, ultimately how they get to these things and the way they think about it. And then to really bring it all together is, you and I talk about this all the time, is clinics are very important to us coaches to gain the knowledge. But to me and you and the guys that really understand this, it's how do you apply the principles, the ideas, and what you're learning, right? Because we're going to learn football all the time. But at the end of the day, we've got to get this stuff to show up on tape and help us win games. And so as we go through this, you're going to hear these guys, and then we're going to follow it up with, Q&As and more about the intrigue of, okay, let's answer specific questions. But here are the fail points that I've had within my journey within operating RPOs in a 7-year span. And these are the different things that we're considering now based on how defenses are adjusting. Maybe you have a particular issue with a front, how people are fitting from the second level or how they're defending on the third level. Okay, let's talk about the evolutions within the RPO game that each of us have experienced, and then how you can tailor that towards your personal application of, an RPO concept to maybe skip some of the fail points that we have all hit in our journeys and get to those answers quicker, have more of those systemized thought process when you do implement them to where it's ultimately, it's providing you with actual feedback, actual information that's going to service you, and you're going to get it to show up on Friday night or Saturday morning, whenever it may be there. So I think it's a topic that we're going to talk about in depth, but we're going to centralize it, and we're going to let, some of these experts talk on it in a little bit more detail so you can hear how it was done at River Falls and will potentially be done at Drake now, how it's done at Alma, a team that's 5-6 years ago wasn't winning. Now they're winning all the time. How we got Mount St. Joe turned around, what we're trying to do here in the Mid-South Conference at Georgetown, all of these different ways to get these things done. And that's where I think that the value of the clinic will be, is hearing consistent messaging and evolution from each topic, and then let's follow up with it to get real world application face to face on, from a computer screen, from me to you, of this is how we drill it, this is how we practice it, this is how we install it, this is the flow of it, these are the fail points that we've seen. So maybe we can get some of these ideas that you're seeing on Twitter and you're seeing other people run, maybe we can bring them to life without them just being, theory or, being unaware of how they actually get installed and applied.
Yeah, I think that's where the magic happens. Is certainly, again, sharing the knowledge is important, but like I said before in this episode, that's kind of level one of it, understanding how people think about it. And I think, we have roundtables, Q&As. We've got it, we'll have a session with Joe where, I am sure Joe always presents like, I'm going to give the greatest clinic ever given. And, consistently, he's been the number one ranking guy. Anytime he spoke at Lawrence First and Goal, probably true this time too, did an hour and a half on developing the drop back passing game. So he saved the RPO for this one, but being able to ask him some questions, have the Q&A with him. And then, the roundtables, certainly you guys are going to pick each other's brain. And what's always been interesting as we've done some of these over the last year, the roundtables, is I sit back and, wind you guys up and let you go. And within minutes, I see guys pulling out notepads and taking notes. And my thought is like, okay, let's just start there. That if you guys are learning from each other, certainly an audience watching this is learning as well. But audience will have the opportunity to participate and ask questions and put ideas in front of these coaches too, and problem solve a little bit. So we have the interactive part, that's going to be the live part. I think the format is great in that you're going to get, Joe will be live, but then you have the other presentations. So overall, the 16 plus 2 more interactive sessions. And really, it's friendly to coaches who they can say, I'm really only spending about, 4.5 hours over the course of a week, over the course of 3 days, split up of my time in the evening. We're not taking up your weekend. Go do what you want to do. You can watch the learning part on your own, and we'll still have the opportunity for it. So we'll release ahead of time. This clinic is up the 17th, 18th, and 19th of March. For those who buy the tickets about a week ahead of time, you'll have all the pre-recorded on-demand type stuff, and then we'll have the live events for you too. And, this is the start of the Smart Clinic season for us, and we're going to have it on multiple topics where we do these deep dives. It's about going deep on a singular topic and getting multiple perspectives. And doing so, I think you'll take a lot more away from this than if we said, hey, I got 16 speakers, because we want the depth in this too. And, on the back end of it, building in things like we've been doing with the AI companions so that when you're either going through this or going back to it, you can use that and problem solve yourself. It stays within the knowledge base that we're giving you. So it's not like it's inventing stuff, but it's very helpful as a tool to help you learn and think deeper about these things that these guys have presented over the course of probably what will end up being about 20 hours of content.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. And I think like you said, it's a depth of knowledge. It's actually getting to those core questions so you can take it from a cool clinic topic to real world application. I do want to add too, we have, high school representation too. We got a lot of small college guys, but we got Coach Thompson in Roswell, Georgia. It's about, If it's not Texas, it's Georgia. I mean, it's high-level football. I'm a guy that's scoring points, winning games, who's operating. And then we have Southeast Ohio represented off the kind of the Switchblade tree and Coach Hall. And like you mentioned, I remember when you had us on coach and coordinator for the roundtable. If you've heard me or at any point in time, student of the game or on some different coach and coordinator visits, these are guys that I personally learned from, like you mentioned. Whenever I hear Joe Matheson speak, I'm taking notes. Whenever I talk to Zach, read my Alma once a year, maybe twice every offseason, just to make sure we're caught up. Coach Shoes and I do these deep dives. So in real time, you're going to be hearing guys that these are the guys that I would go to directly. Coach Thompson at Roswell is a Josh Herring direct recommendation. Hey, this is the top guy in Georgia, operating RPO. So you're getting these guys that I think are, they're having to solve problems. They're all at the small college level or they're in high school. So we all have the same issues and same, challenges to getting good football plays run. So that's where I think you're going to hear some truth in it, some reality of we all have, things that we're working up against that, we're not necessarily getting it from the top where talent level is just completely different than any of us may experience. So that's to me just the ultimate icing on the cake is we got a lot of levels represented. We have guys that are doing it in real time. And there are people that I genuinely go to and seek advice on a year-to-year basis to help my knowledge of football and help our system, help the Switchblade grow. It's a lot of influence from guys that are going to be on this clinic. So I think it's a great lineup. I think it's an awesome way to bring all these ideas together and excited to kind of help kick off this smart clinic idea that's going to certainly take off for people that are in search of truth and real ways to make themselves better.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you joining me on the podcast to highlight some of these things, to get it kicked off, as you mentioned. And I'm excited to dig into it and put this in front of our audience and ever-growing coach network. If we've transitioned from coaching coordinator podcast to coaching coordinator network, because that's truly what this has become over, thousands of guys who have been a part of what we're doing, and being able to go back to, some of these guys in multiple ways to just continue our learning, I think is great. And having you be a big part of it and continuing to grow with you. It's been fun just in the short time I've known you to see you grow in your career and to see how you think about the game. So appreciate all you're doing. I appreciate you being a part of this, and we look forward to kicking this off for our audience. That's going to be March 17th, 18th, 19th. We'll have a link in the show notes of this episode on how you can get your tickets. And, with everything we're doing, we're trying to put it out there for you at a price that's reasonable too. I mean, we want you to learn the game. We want you to hear from these guys, because I think if we can learn and develop ourselves, we're going to continue to grow this great game, which is a vehicle for doing so much good in the world. And I truly believe that. If this episode hit home, don't just take notes. Give yourself a format that forces application. That's exactly what the Smart Clinic's RPO Symposium is built for. Real install pathways, real coaching points, and real answers. And the chance to ask questions you can't get from a cut-up or a tweet. It runs March 17th through the 19th, and if you grab your ticket early, you'll get the on-demand sessions about a week in advance, then jump into the live roundtables and Q&A, as well as our keynote with Joe Moorhead. The link to all of this is in the show notes. Come learn it, then go make it show up on tape. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.